Shut up, I'm talking!
Barbarella is a strange trip. It starts with the title character floating in zero-G while apparently daydreaming and stripping off her spacesuit piece by piece until she's completely naked, setting the tone for an interesting experience. The movie immediately reminds you that it was made in the 60s with the hippie music and shag carpet in her spaceship. She crash lands on the ice planet Hoth and encounters her universe's version of Chewbacca, in that she befriends an extremely hairy man, and after some pointless exposition and a brief discussion about child labor laws, they have sex. Once her ship is repaired, she crash lands again, this time into a labyrinth where she meets a blind Abercrombie & Fitch model with Victoria's Secret-style angel wings. They need to escape, but escape is impossible since the place is guarded by terrible creatures. On top of that, the Abercrombie model has lost the will to fly, because reasons, but will soon regain the will to fly after having sex with Barbarella. They easily escape the supposedly inescapable labyrinth, and guess what? Crash land. This time inside a city that resembles a combination of Dune and Logan's Run. The two of them get separated. The angel is sent to be the great tyrant sex toy, and Barbarella goes to an Alfred Hitchcock revival to get pecked to death by about 200 canaries. After she is inexplicably saved by the 30-year-old man living in his mom's basement, she finds the secret key that will allow her to defeat the great tyrant, save the Abercrombie model, and get off the planet. Barbarella escapes, but is captured by the concierge, who puts her in a gigantic keyboard-driven orgasmatron in an attempt to make her die from pleasure. I don't get it either. The machine overloads, but she's double-crossed by the tyrant's concierge in an attempted coup. Luckily, Barbarella and the great tyrant are able to escape by going through the source of pure evil underneath the surface of the planet. Barbarella then finds the angel and they fly back to her ship, get off the planet, and the movie can mercifully end.
Barbarella is clearly out of her element for surviving on other planets. When she arrives on Tau Ceti, she is abducted by the Shiny Twins, who whisk her away on their magical unicorn stingray. When meeting the children of the Ice Planet, she is nearly chomped to death by antiquated China dolls, which provide her with a strange feeling of arousal. Her form of rescue comes by a stranger who captures wild children for slave labor and requests sexual intercourse for repayment of rescue. These incidents come up time and again. Barbarella is in a state of peril and is saved by a mediocre male figure. Her compensation is sexual intercourse in nature and enlightens the male hero through external means. Even though she has several means of using force against the nature of evil, she instead relies on others to come in and save the day. Additionally, Barbarella is insensitive to other characters throughout the film. Her ignorance of Pygar's blindness displays her ineptitude towards other people's disabilities. Moreover, she was inconsiderate of the customs of sexual advances on Tau Ceti, insisting that her version of intercourse was the most suitable. Later, she pushes the savage version of intercourse with Dildano, the rebel. Her radical feminist awakening hinders her from making lasting relationships with the people on Tau Ceti and provides a poor representation of Earth women.
This movie is a public service announcement for not bathing in mercury laced with psychedelic drugs. Why exactly Barbarella had sealed herself in a spacesuit filled with liquid metal is never made clear, nor is it clear how or why she can pull the peripheral pieces of her costume off before flushing the internal mercury toilet. Apparently, however, it's greatly exfoliating to wash with metal, because Jane Fonda's first costume, for several minutes of long conversation extolling the virtues of communism, is nudity. Through Barbarella's 8 costume changes, nudity is revisited frequently, both by Jane Fonda and the extras, who serve as everything from naked half-stone statues that grope each other, to semi-naked, leather-bound stoners hanging from the ceiling such that their feet interfere with every camera shot for a multi-minute scene. Of course, the nudity is necessary to accommodate Barbarella's passionate love affair with sexual intercourse, a practice apparently outlawed and replaced by Magic Hand Happy Time several hundred years before. Thankfully, an Iceman arrives to save her from the evil children, blue bunnies, and demon dolls, and between his bed of furs, his fur clothing, and his ample supply of chest fur, she learns what it must feel like to fuck a Yeti. At least the fur is familiar, though, since the inside of her ship is completely lined with long brown shag carpet, like a horribly mutilated grizzly bear. I can't imagine how her ship crashed through a magnetic storm. Just walking from one end of that set to the other probably generated enough static electricity to power a small village. Of the sets, the ship is the least offensive, although the view window into the slimy pit of hell that served as the main window into space certainly made it difficult to like. Apparently, space, the layers of magma beneath a planetary crust, and an evil pool of psychotic death water sludge all look like a cross between a shaken emulsion of oil and water and burning cellophane. Oddly enough, an oil-water emulsion and burning cellophane look nothing alike, much like space, liquid rock, and psychotic death water look nothing alike. Movie magic!
Seeing R.I.P.D. destroyed my ability to think. It starts with Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Bacon, whose name is smartly omitted from all marketing material, having a discussion about some stolen gold. Reynolds wants to turn it in, but Bacon wants to keep it. After a predictable argument, Bacon agrees that the gold needs to be returned. It's at this point that Kevin Bacon's character obtains a large neon sign that says, "I am obviously the bad guy and will kill the good guy at the next possible moment," which he proceeds to do in the next scene during a police raid. After Reynolds dies from being shot in the face, he meets up with a woman who has the personality of Droopy the dog and the appearance of a slightly less dark Morticia Addams. He agrees to be part of the R.I.P.D., basically the Men in Black, but for people that are dead, computer-generated, and much less interesting. Reynolds meets Jeff Bridges' character, trying to do his best impersonation of the Dude, Rooster Cogburn, McClintock, and Scooby-Doo all at the same time, while failing miserably at all of them. Going into this movie, I thought that Bridges would be the only good part about it, since it would be tolerable since he's the most awarded actor in this movie by a pretty wide margin. I was wrong. It seems he didn't know what he wanted his character to be, and neither did the script. Almost every scene with him includes more useless backstory about how he died, each time more gross and unnecessary than the last. After what seemed like a week of meandering story, useless plot points, unresolved conflicts, and idiotic mythos, the movie finally ended, which is a good thing because I don't know how many brain cells I had left at the end of this stinker.
The typical buddy cop film usually has characters that are goofy but respectful of each other, feeding off each other as though they were friends for ages. R.I.P.D. has no such qualities. Bridges and Reynolds portray characters that you would actively stay away from and appear to have an abusive, passive-aggressive relationship more familiar to a bland romantic comedy. With a plot that barely chugs along, R.I.P.D. has little to no life and relies on cliched plot devices in the same vein as Men in Black and Ghostbusters. The idea that souls of the dead coming back to life provides some confusion as to whether or not the dead coming back are zombies. And if they are zombies, they're doing a fine job disguising this fact. Female lead is a passing fad, and her only role is to be a background set piece versus an actual character. This movie insults the audience intelligence with bad writing, bad characters, bad dialogue, bad visual effects, and one of the worst endings for a movie I've ever seen. The most disappointing part of the movie was Bridges, but he easily gives the worst performance because his was so unfocused. Reynolds was bad because he went out of his way to make this bad. I would only recommend this film to people who enjoy watching bad movies or to punish your mortal enemies if a copy of Jack and Jill isn't around. Feel like we've been sucked into the world of superfluous costume change.
I feel pretty.
This movie destroyed my ability to offer commentary on movies. In the process of trying to write an angry review of R.I.P.D, I discovered the impossibility inherent in mocking a movie that fails to recognize its own stupidity. I don't know whether it was listening to Jeff Bridges talk around a mouthful of half-chewed banana for 2 hours, or watching Ryan Reynolds' Twilight-esque I'm going to either manifest a toilet from my scrotum or shit my pants, and neither option is pleasant, facial expression for the entirety of that same 2 hours. But something about the movie snapped whatever fragment of joy I had left in my blackened necromantic heart. Maybe it was the grotesque special effects, not grotesque in a good way, but grotesque in a we didn't believe special effects this bad in The Matrix Reloaded 15 years ago, why would we consume it now sort of way. The popping deados made the CGI alien effects in Men in Black look like fine art, and the general environmental CGI made me pine for Oblivion's sweepingly distracting landscapes. This movie was a pile of shit that should never have made it to pre-production, much less seen any real screen time. If you take every buddy cop movie ever made, throw them into a blender, and add a decomposing whale carcass for flavor, you still won't get the disgusting amalgam of cliche and foul putrescence that this 2-hour screen dump turned out to be. If you're thinking of seeing this movie, do yourself a favor. Find the nearest piece of rebar and smash it into your skull. Then go see Oblivion. At least a concussion might make that movie watchable.